Welcome to Music Outlook LA, the podcast which highlights the independent artist, whether they are a musician, vocalist, actor, actress, live audio or in-studio engineer, or a videographer, photographer. I'm your host, Will Kimsey. Each episode, we'll look at the gigs of the independent artists, from the venues we play to how we set up and break down, the gear we use and why we use it, and the info we hope you'll find useful as we all make our way in the entertainment industry. Music Outlook LA is brought to you by Kim Z Entertainment LLC. Go to kim-zentertainment.com to find out what they're doing for the independent artist. Kim Z Entertainment LLC. Independent entertainment done independently.
My guest today is bassist, producer, educator, and entrepreneur Gene Perla, who's played with many of the greats in his multi-decade spanning career, such as people like McCoy Tyner, Nina Simone, and Willie Bobo, just to name a few. Today, we're not only going to touch on his illustrious career, but as a proud union member with the American Federation of Musicians, working out of Local 802 of New York. We're going to talk about the benefits of unions, collective bargaining agreements, and more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gene Perla. Welcome to the show, Gene. How are you today, sir?
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, great. Let's just get right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. A legendary career that goes decades. And for our DIY entrepreneurs and entertainers, us indie artists, could you tell us a bit about your musical journey and what initially brought you to the bass?
Mom wanted to give me some culture, so she started me on the classical piano lessons when I was 5 years old, and I did it for 10 years. When I went to high school, I picked up the trombone, and I played that in the high school grades for 5 years. And then I went to an engineering school. And music was never at the forefront of my mind. It was just something to do. But when I went to engineering school, there was no music at all for, I don't know, more than 2 years. So one night, I went to see my one of my fraternity brothers who was playing in a band. And these guys were great. They were local. They had outfits on, matching jackets, and four of them played instruments and sang. And upon hearing them, I don't know, like a lightning bolt went to me. I said, you know what, I can do this kind of stuff. So I approached them and asked them to join their band. I said, yeah, sure, kid. But I get the pant leg, man. I don't want to let go. So I kept at it, and they let me join the band. I sang a little bit. I had the trombone. I could play the piano. Anyway, but it was still not, something to do. That's it. I was tight with the drummer. And most Saturdays, we would go to the local record shop where you could listen to LPs. They had listening booths with turntables in the back of the store. There was no shrink wrap, so you just take the record, listen to it, and you liked it, you bought it, and then you put it back in the rack. 1959, Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. I hear this piano player named Bill Evans, and it sounds very interesting, chords and so forth, but I was really stuck on, especially Cannonball Adderley. God, the guy was swinging so hard. And Coltrane with his technical mastery, and of course, Miles. And fabulous. The greatest jazz record of all time.
Miles Smiles.
Yep. So, okay, I'm listening to that. It wasn't long afterward on another Saturday that I pulled an album out of the bin, and it was by the pianist, Bill Evans, and it was called Sunday at the Village Vanguard. It was a trio album with that phenomenal bassist, Scott LaFaro.
Yeah.
And the drummer's name was Paul. We used to pronounce his name in his native heritage, Motian. That's how we said his name back then, but through the years it got changed to Motion. Anyhow, upon hearing that first cut on that album, I just decided right there and then I wanted to be a jazz piano player. So I looked around for schools. There were only 2 schools, as far as I know, in the world that taught jazz. One was North Texas State, and the other was Berkeley. In North Texas, they seemed to focus on big bands, and Berkeley was a small group. So I went to school there. And I started practicing. I had a center in my life that I'd never had before. I was practicing on the weekends, 10 hours. I was just there, going over those 2-5, 2 minor 7 chord to 5 dominant chord to the major, and playing the scales over them, and over and over and over and over, and coming to the decision that there was no way I was ever going to be Bill Evans too. So I'm slightly depressed,
Oh, no.
So I see, slightly, I see a classmate on the street, and he says, man, I got this record. Got to come and check it out. So I went over, and now that it's legal, I can say we toked up. And he puts on Ornette Coleman's The Shape of Jazz to Come.
Mm.
There's no chords, right?
No, there's not.
Vibraphone, no piano, no guitar, no organ.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing this bass. To me, I was translating it into, I don't know, his time is a little funny. And his intonation, I don't know, and his choice of note, but it was so organic, that right then, the next day, I went to the school. I said I quit piano. I was 24 years old. I went down and bought a $600 K bass, and that was it.
Well, all right. For those that are saying Berkeley, UC, no, not UC Berkeley, Berkeley College of Music, Boston, Massachusetts. Gene and I are alumni. So there you go. And like I was mentioning before, you play with some big names. You've mentioned big names that you've listened to. I know everybody you're talking about, familiar with their work. Tell me about a couple of the most impactful gigs that you've done and what made them so special. Like we were talking earlier, we were sending back notes back and forth, and you mentioned Nina Simone and recording with Miles. Why don't you tell us about those?
Yeah, we were on tour of Europe. This is with Nina. We were on tour of Europe, and we wound up in the Netherlands at a beautiful theater. It's called as Concertgebouw. And so we're playing this concert, and the way the theater was laid out was, it wasn't like the stage was at one end of the rectangle, right? It was kind of inside the house already, and it was up from the lower level, but on the other side of us, it was like above us. So we were surrounded, not quite surrounded, but on both sides by audience. It was interesting layout. And what struck me about that particular concert was Nina was she could go from a feather that is floating in the air and just gentle as can be to an explosion of a volcano. Her dynamic range was tremendous. Right? Mm-hmm. So we're playing this slow song, really slow, and I'm just playing bass notes like bing, ding, long stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the place was so quiet, it made me think that if that feather hit the floor, I'd hear it.
Yeah,
it was just overwhelming, that silence of how she had brought that place to such a point. The thing with Miles was a fluke, and I say fluke because just I happened to be at the right place at the right time. My best friend for over 40 years there, for me, the greatest percussionist that I've ever heard or know about. And there are many great percussionists. His name was Don Elias. We came up together in the Latin band in Boston, and then we worked together with Nina Simone, Elvin Jones, and many things. So he would stay with me when he came to the city. He was living in Providence, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And so we get up one morning, and he says, I'm going to record with Miles, because he had already connected with Miles at that point. And he said, you want to come along? And I said, yeah, sure. So I took my electric bass with me, fortunately, because I had a gig that night. And I'm sitting in the control room, and a half hour goes by, an hour goes by, and more than, I don't know, coming to a half an hour and a half, they're waiting, just sitting there waiting in the studio for Michael Henderson, the bass player. He didn't show up. The rest of the band is there. Mm-hmm. The mics are open, and I hear Elias then say to Miles, he said, there's a bass player in the control room. Miles said, I'll never forget this, tell him to get his ass in here. Yeah. So I went in and started shaking and sat down, plugged into the amplifier and working on getting a sound. And then he sings to me the tune, which is the bass line. That's it. The whole tune is the bass line. Mm-hmm. So I picked it up pretty quickly. And as he walked away, and we started to play it, as he's walking away, he says to me, don't make it swing. So listening to that bass track, not swinging.
Right.
In the normal sense of, syncopated jazz.
Yeah.
And the name of that tune, it didn't come out. It was part of the Jack Johnson recordings. It came out later. It's, release of other stuff. But the name of the tune is Ali for Muhammad Ali.
Right. Okay. That is so cool. Love it. Love it. Love it. So since the show Music Outlook LA talks about gigs, gear, and info, we try to inspire not just current musicians who've been in this game for a while, but, the young up-and-coming ones. So to that end, on your gear, walk us through your current setup and what are some of the essential pieces of equipment that are key to your sound, since you were talking about dialing in that sound for the Miles Davis session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's I have pretty simple stuff because for quite some years now, I'm playing just the double bass. There were years back in the past, quite a few years, that I played mostly just the electric bass, but I haven't been touching that for quite some years now. But I'll tell you about it because it's kind of interesting. It was custom built by a fellow named Carl Thompson, and he's made basses for Stanley Clarke and a bunch of other people. Mm-hmm. And then he helped me design it so I had an extension like a double bass with a trigger at the top, where the nut is. When it was closed, it was like a regular 4-string bass, and the lowest note was an E. But if you open up the trigger, there was an extended bridge, a tailpiece, just for a longer note that went down, and it went down to a low C. So, and you could finger it, or you can finger it. Mm-hmm. So you get those extra notes at the bottom, like the double basses have that kind of mechanism.
Right.
So, but yeah, I've been playing this. I've had it for quite a few years now. Originally, it was built in Russia. It went to Cuba, and from there went to Mexico City, and then I picked it up in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico City and brought it back and really refurbished it well. And so that's it. And for amplification, I have been using a acoustic image. I think it's what did I write down there? B2, I think.
10-2 amp.
Yeah, 10-2 amp. Right. Mm-hmm. And just a little side story on that. Sadly, I called it back in the day. I called the company, and I got the guy, the boss, and he knew my name, so it was very nice. We had a nice deal together, and he sends me the amp, and that's it. I was using it. Now, years go by, and finally I called him one time, and he's not responding. So finally, I get a response from his son. He had passed away. Okay, sorry to hear that. He says, well, what can I do about, repairing the amp? He says, we have nothing to do with it. We don't know anything about it. He was the only guy who knew how to build the amp built them and maintained them. Nobody else knows.
Wow, he didn't teach anybody, huh?
Well, the thing is, he was engineering
Right.
well by creating, the schematics and all that business. So that paperwork went to another place in New Jersey, and they've helped me to repair mine already. So,
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's sounds cool. Sounds pretty good. And I just happened to think about a story I had. We were talking earlier, and you were asking about me. I forgot to mention one thing. When I was in high school, I was the drum major my senior year, which also meant I was a student conductor. And I played also piano and clarinet. We were working on, it was actually my junior year, 11th grade, and it was one of the musicals, West Side Story. And I was on the clarinet and I had a bass clarinet. And I did some arranging for the marching band at the time of some pop tunes and such, And the music teacher looks at me, Joelish, and he just says, Will, the bass player didn't show up. I'm sorry to hear that. What do you do? I need you to go get on bass. I don't know how to play bass. Open strings, E, A, D, G, chromatic
there you
scales on
go.
the fretboard. Go. There's a beginner's book over there. I just need to hear the tone, the tonic. I said, okay. And I see, Gene, that you are a tall man. And I'm a little itty bitty, 5'5". So the stand-up is bigger than me. I get up on the bar stools that they had.
Yeah.
And I sit in this big, huge thing. And I did do it because, I'm a piano player. I know the bass clef. I can do it. He said, okay, open string. I'm guessing where it is. And I actually fumbled my way through it. And next thing you know, I have a liking now for the bass. I'm going to go get another one and take some more lessons. Well, that was the bass story, covering on that. So then he says, the oboe player didn't show up. You play clarinet. Oh. He tells me that and hands me the book. So I'm like, okay, so now I'm adding an oboe. Next thing you know, it goes to a bassoon and a sax. I'm like, geez. So by the time we do West Side Story, I've got this ensemble of my own in the middle of the orchestra pit. So I've got a synthesizer, a Casio of his, my teacher's, in front of me. I've got a clarinet, bass clarinet over on the right. I've got the double bass behind me and a bassoon and an oboe over here on the left. And every song I'm switching to a different instrument. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm loving it, though. So that's my story to share. I dabble in all of that, and he even had me sit up there on drums one day, and I'm like, oh, jeez Christ, what's next?
So my question is, did you get the sextet doubling?
There you go. Nope, I didn't get the pleasure. I didn't get the pleasure.
No union contract, right?
No union contract. Nope, they didn't give me anything like that. I just covered on the instrument, and a couple of bands I've played in, I've had to cover, and just to get through the rehearsal, and that was pretty much it. I said, nope, I'm sticking with what I know. I'm a keyboard player. I'm a piano player. I'm sticking with the 88s, and let that be that. That's as far as I'm going to go. But you and I are both members of the union, American Federation of Musicians, and you and I met earlier this week at one of our Zoom meetings for the, what is it called? The Federation of, I know it's FMA.
Freelance Musicians.
Freelance Musicians Association. Yes, there we go. I just heard about it recently. I got an email through Local 7 of AFM, and they told me about this. I said, oh, this looks interesting. So I clicked, and I joined, and I said, oh, wow. And then you and I met, listened to the meeting, and there we go. But on the subject of the unions itself, I know you've been a long-time member, and 802 out in New York. So tell us about your reasons for joining the local, and early in your career, what were the benefits you were looking for in your membership?
Well, okay, just give you a little quick historical thumbnail sketch. As I was still trying to be a piano player, I hadn't taken up the bass yet in Boston as a Berklee student. Mm-hmm. Someone gave this agent my name and number, and he called me and he said, would you be able to go down and play in the afternoons at a strip club in downtown Boston? That area downtown Boston then was called the Combat Zone.
Oh, yes. It was called the Zone when I went.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Combat Zone, yeah. There was I'm sorry to diverge, but you would go down, let's see, you would go down Boylston all the way down, past the big Catholic church and past Star Market, all of those, past the Prudential Center, everything. And you get into the Combat Zone. There was, I think, along the way, a music record store there. I forget the name of it, but I know their colors were pink and black, and it was a 3-story building. Do you remember the name of that?
No, it may have not existed. I don't know about that at all.
Okay. But I'm familiar with the Combat Zone.
Yeah. So anyway, he said, but you have to be a member of the union. This is what the agent tells me. And I was like, oh, okay, what's that? So he says, yeah, there's 2 of them in town. He said, so I called Local 9, and it was a center for, I guess, others as well, but essentially it was a white union.
Right.
And there was the 535, which was essentially for mostly black musicians. Mm-hmm. And so I called the Local 9 first, and I said, what's the story? What does it cost? I found that out, and then I called 535, and it was considerably less money. So the hell with that money, right? I want to save money. So I go to 535. I walk in the lobby, and there are about three black fellows sitting there in some chairs. And they see me come in, and the looks they gave me was something like, hey, what are you doing here? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Anyway, I just went up to the window, and I want to join. The guy hands me the paperwork. I sign it. I give him the money. And when I turned around to split, what was so sweet was those 3 guys got up and shook my hand. So that was sweet.
Cool.
So then, boom, there was nothing after that. Zero. No connection with the union whatsoever. It was just that I think I played a couple of afternoons and the gig folded. I don't remember. It was so long ago.
Yeah.
So I moved to New York, well, actually New Jersey, and I transferred to the Patterson local, Patterson, New Jersey local. Still, there was no work for me, nothing. I'm still freelancer, but I remained a union member. And then finally I moved into the city, so then I rolled over to 802. So it's been a while now that I've been with them. And then, of course, I was involved because once I started making my way to the higher echelon of artists, they were doing recordings, and many of them were doing recordings for established, and some of them the major labels. So all those gigs are under union contract. So of course that's me being already in a union, and that was it. And then I get this opportunity to teach music business at the New School, which is located in New York City. It's actually called the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music. It's part of New School University.
Right.
And it turns out that prior to my becoming on the faculty, others had successfully arranged a contract between Local 802 and the school. Mm-hmm. So we, part-time teachers at the New School, are under union contract, And I'm telling you, it's a sweet thing. A sweet thing. It pays well. I don't need them because of my age. I'm on, Medicare and all that other stuff. But there's health care, and more importantly, there's a pension. So anyhow, that's kind of the trajectory. And really depends upon what music work that you're doing. But a lot of it makes absolute sense to join the union. There's tremendous benefits from it.
Right, because I learned traditionally that unions usually deal with people who work in orchestras, your symphonic orchestras and things of that nature. We always get emails and things all the time from our union about things that are going on at Disneyland, that they have auditions for this, that, and the other, or Long Beach Symphony Orchestra is doing something and that kind of thing. So, that's what I had traditionally learned. But I realized that in my case, I just knew, something just told me, without doing any research, that I should join the union, because unions typically, no matter what industry they're for, will be there to give you some kind of support. For example, say you need it legally and you need some kind of resources, that's there. And so I joined my local union. Before I moved out away from LA proper, mine would have been Local 47 for Los Angeles. But as I moved further out of the city, like I said, 353 was the first union I joined. And then we got absorbed into Local 7, which covers Long Beach and goes into Orange County. So that's my reason for joining a union, which is the next follow-up question. Why should, in your opinion, a musician join their local union?
Well, I just said a bit ago that it really depends on the work that you're involved with. Mm-hmm. Because if you're a freelancer indie player that's playing club gigs, as I do, most of these gigs, they're not union gigs. The money that we're being paid is, most cases, far away from what you would be paid if it was a usual union gig, club gig. So it really is dependent on the kind of work you're doing, And a lot of the work that you do, for instance, I just mentioned that I teach at the school and we have a contract with them. All full-time teachers are required to join the union. And if they don't, the power exists in our contract with the school that they can be fired. Right? Mm-hmm. And I believe, as it should be, it's a union house, you need to join. So, but if you get a gig at playing in the orchestra for the ballet, or you do Broadway, or you do road shows of Broadway shows, symphony orchestras, and many other also commercial groups that work under union contracts for like weddings and parties and stuff like that, then I would imagine that they all work the same way as they do with our new school. You have to join. Mm-hmm. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So again, I'll say back, it's really important to be cognizant of the work that you're doing. Is it really could it fall under union work or not? But there's an exception to this, which I found out. And saying, I'm going to try and describe it very simply. Okay. I have an LLC. That's how I run my operation, Limited Liability Corporation. Because I have that LLC, my LLC signed an agreement with Local 802 in New York, the musicians union. So I was able to pay into this for every gig that I did, and that went towards my pension and all the benefits that come from that kind of an association. So anyone who wants to go down that road, again, it's really, I think, money dependent. In other words, if you're making $50, $100 a gig, maybe it doesn't make sense to do something like that. But if you start making some some good, reasonable money, that might be a way to go. Start a corporation, and that way you can do your own thing.
I like it. We have an LLC as well, and I'm going to look into a similar agreement with Local 7, paying into the pension and such. It sounds like a good idea.
Well, let me say one other thing, Will, about that. Now that you just brought it up, I'm talking with real, positive information here.
Right,
and
right.
It's correct if we're talking about Local 802 in New York City. I can't speak for any other local.
Right. No, I understand. Right. I understand. Yeah. With that said, I'm at least going to talk to him and see what's up. Orange County is a pretty big local. 47 is the larger one as far as membership is concerned. But 7 is pretty much right there, almost neck and neck with them. You mentioned LA, then you got Orange County is the next biggest one, and vice versa. So, speaking of bargaining, I guess you could call it a bargaining agreement that you made, what they call CBAs. Could you tell us about CBAs? What are they? And why is it so important for both established and up-and-coming musicians to know about these kind of things?
That LLC that I was just telling you about, that I've since dropped that, mostly because of my age, and now my performing income is not the strength that it was, which is all fine and good. I'm happy to have the rest.
Right.
Yeah, but that LLC that I had with them, that agreement, that's exactly what it is. It's a collective bargaining agreement. Collective meaning that whoever is involved in wanting to have this agreement between themselves, it could be 2 people or 2 organizations, or it could be a whole bunch of people in organizations, depending on what you're trying to get accomplished. But that agreement, collective, that's what it means. Everyone who's involved. And bargaining means that you're negotiating the points in that contract. An agreement means that now you've come to an agreement. That's it. You agree to all the bargaining points that you've made. And so that's what it is. Collective CBA is simply an agreement between people or organizations or organizations.
And there's definitely power in being with the group.
Oh, yeah, you were asking about that.
Yeah, and the decisions that have already been made, I guess, in a CBA, whether it's between, as you said, individuals or organizations, they can be built upon over the years. So that...
Yeah, I can give you a direct example of that, and that is... there was a bit of a year, or maybe a year and a half ago, that we negotiated our current contract that we're under now. And I think the next one is going to be in 68. What am I talking about? 28. 2028, we're going to have another contract. But prior to our negotiations, just in front of us by a few months, was another, because there are multiple unions at the new school. Another one is the UAW, United Auto Workers. It kind of sounds funny, but there are a lot of teachers in that union, and there are thousands of teachers in that union, where the jazz school, we only have a bit over maybe 130, 140 people. That's it. So they negotiated a fabulous contract for themselves. And because they did, we just rode on their coattails.
Yeah.
She says, hey, if you're giving this to them, then you got to give it to us. So our contract, it just went through. There was no haranguing. There were no super long late night arguments, nothing. Boom. Done.
That's all right. That is all right. So for a freelancer then, like myself, or maybe somebody just coming in, They get single gigs like we talked about before, or maybe a short-term gig that lasts a week to a month or maybe a few months. So how are these people protected? I mean, we kind of touched on it, but how are they protected if they don't have like a long-term employer like you did as a educator with New School?
Good luck.
So
I don't mean to sound harsh, but I think how I would answer that is that, okay, it's fine. You play an instrument. We're talking about musicians now, right?
Right.
Or I mean, whatever, actually. You're a sculptor, you're a painter, you're a dancer, whatever it is. This is what you want to do. That's the center of your heart, and you work your ass off trying to get this stuff together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it's a struggle, there's got to be it might make sense, let's put it that way, to just see if there's something else that is out there in the world. I mean, there's a few things going on, right? There might be something else that's maybe it's aligned in some way with what you're trying to do. Try and learn something else. And that's the way I've been able to make it, because not only am I a player, but I'm a producer, I'm a recording studio, a music publisher, I'm a website designer, and a bunch of other stuff through the years. So I make a little of this one, and I make some of that one, I make some of this, and I put it together, and I got potatoes at the end of the day.
All right, there you go. So what I'm picking up is some of the same things that I'm already doing. I not only play, I also do live audio and video recording, making sure people have a presence when they go to do their gigs on the internet. Provide them with a recording at the end. I do some producing, composition, arranging, which is what I went to Berkeley for. I was a professional music major, and they had just started the electronic music department there. So that's right around when the Kurzweils were coming out. So I think Berkeley had about 10 of them that the company, I don't know if they donated them or some kind of deal was struck. I didn't, and I should have gone into the department more. And, if I had it to do all over again, I'd be a music production engineering major. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm glad I got to learn, and that there is a plethora of knowledge. I'm a member of the YouTube University, so I was able to pick a lot of things up. And another thing that I've done is, when you said web page design, I was designing web pages myself before Wix showed up on the scene. I had to go and do the old school lines and lines of code. And, if your client isn't happy, you have to go through the code and find out why their picture is upside down. And it could be something, for those who are computer savvy with the code, it could be something as simple as one character. If you put a colon instead of a semicolon, it could affect the way the screen looks, or some element on that. Your picture could, instead of going straight across, your picture could do this, and you don't mean for it to. So I've done that, and I what is it, the saying, jack of all trades, master of none? I try to have different streams coming in as well. So I definitely get it. I
have a story for you.
Okay,
if you
go
have
ahead.
the time.
Please.
Yeah. You mentioned Kurzweil. I'm trying to remember his name. What was his first name? Anyway, I got to meet him once. And the reason that I met him was that there was a period in my life that I got hooked into designing sound for Broadway shows. And I had a wonderful experience doing that. The first major show that I did won a Tony Award for Best Musical. It was called City of Angels, speaking of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we did the first 2 Disney shows, Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King. So big shows in New York. But going back to City of Angels show, there are a lot of sound effects in that show, which our recording studio, I was studio manager of an audio studio in New York. We did some video, but it was mostly an audio studio. And in fact, it was owned by 2 fellows, the Fitzgerald brothers, and their father was the one who introduced the microphone to the Broadway stage. And I had a partner at that time. His name is Bernard Fox, and we did a lot of technology stuff, creating things. So I don't want to go into those long stories about that. But at this show, City of Angels, the sound effects were all put on samplers and assigned a particular MIDI note.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what we had was there was a corner desk, and on the corner desk, and I'll do it this way. There was a keyboard here on one table, and then 90 degrees on the other side was another keyboard, because we didn't want to use the black notes, just the white notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so from an 88 thing, right? Well, there were more than 88 sound effects.
Yeah.
So that's why we had 2 keyboards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything is wired in, and we got all the sound effects lined up, and we're doing rehearsals. The show hadn't opened yet, but we're getting close. I think we were about a week and a half out or something of opening. And the 2 leads are singing their love song on stage, rehearsing. And in the middle of their singing, one of the sound effects was this huge explosion. And this explosion goes off right in the middle of their singing. And it's like somebody kicked the anthill. People were like running around in the theater. And I immediately headed for the basement stairs, because that's where our sound operator was. He was the guy pressing the keys, right, for the sound effect. And I'm the first one to get there, and I see him, the back of him, because he's sitting in his chair, and he's got his hands up like this. And he said, I didn't do anything. I didn't touch anything. Ah! So finally things calm down. Boom. They get into singing again. And what happens? Boom! This thing goes off again.
Mm.
Now, one of the producers was an Italian guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up to the Fitzgerald and my partner. They were the co-sound designer. I was assisting them. And he said, if anything happens like this again, I'm going to throw all that shit out in the street. So my partner, who is an electronic, among other things, genius, this guy, and I hate to use that word genius almost as much as I hate to use the word legend.
Right.
There's so many of us now. Forget it. Doesn't mean anything. But this guy's a genius. And so he stayed there, and it took him until after 1 o'clock in the morning to figure out why that explosion went off. Mm-hmm. And he was able to duplicate it. He was able to make it happen when he figured it out. And what it was were those Kurzweils, both of them, where you put the AC plug in to power them up in the back, right? Yeah. There are three. There's the 2 plugs, and then there's the ground, right? You plug that thing in, and guess what? There was no connection inside the Kurzweil board of the ground, which left the circuit open to electronic signals that were being triggered by wireless intercommunications that the different teams were doing. You know, lighting people, they got their own frequency.
All the walkie-talkies going on.
Yeah, the walkie-talkie. That, it's wireless in the room, and somehow that got in and hit that electronic thing, and because there was no ground, he grounded the plugs
for the Kurzweil to play an electronic explosion.
There you go. Wow. Interesting, right? Yeah.
Wow. That is nuts. I did not know that. That is nuts.
Yeah.
No.
Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil.
Yeah. No connection or whatsoever to ground it from the moment you connect the AC. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Wow. And because there was no ground, walkie-talkies and other wireless devices set off the explosion.
Yeah.
Based off the frequency of those devices. Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy. We had...
And for my partner to figure that out.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I'm just picturing this, and I guess he didn't have to open it up or anything, or did he have to take the cover off to figure this out?
He had to. Yeah, he had to. I mean, I wasn't there with him, but he said he had to. He fixed it, which to me means he made a connection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's to the chassis of the device, right?
Yeah.
That's how you ground the thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or at least from my limited electronic understanding.
Yeah. I use Korgs, and that's primarily for money. I wanted a Yamaha, the DX7, the famous keyboard that Jan Hammer used in Miami Vice. Couldn't afford it, so the next best thing was a Korg. And one of my Korgs needed I had to get an SD card. There's an internal one. So went online, saw how many screws, flipped it over upside down, swapped it out myself, and started seeing the inner workings. So I've had to service my own keyboard a few times, but nothing so drastic as to have to solder anything. But it's all simple stuff. Change the action, foam action dealy on the keyboard. I've done that. So I get it. I definitely get it. So
do you, you mentioned the name Jan Hammer. Do you know anything about me and my association with him?
No, I don't. Please share.
Okay. Yeah, because this is a name that's close and dear to my heart, man. Let me tell you. Because Don Elias, who I had mentioned earlier, he called me one time and he says, "Hey, man, there's this piano player from, it was called Czechoslovakia back then. Now it's the Czech Republic, right?"
Yeah.
He said, he's in Boston. And I happened to go to Boston and I happened to meet Jan Hammer, and we had a jam session and we hit it off. Bang. And I was working with Sarah Vaughan at the time, and we needed a piano player. I got him on the gig. And then a couple months later, we got Jimmy Cobb from Kind of Blue drummer to join us. That was a great trio. And then Jan and I went our separate ways. And then one day I saw him on the street somewhere in New York. And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'm trying to get out of town. I want to get out to the country." And he said, "Yeah, me too." One thing led to another. We bought a farm upstate New York, about an hour and a half north of New York. We built a recording studio in there. It's called Red Gate Studio. So we were partners for 10 years. So I know Jan very well.
You are a plethora of information, stories, and people.
And I might as well interject this one as well, because, oh man, and another one too, if you really want to go off. But John McLaughlin calls me on the phone, and he says, "I'm putting a band together." He said, "Do you want to come by and audition?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Now, know that I had just a few months before joined Elvin Jones, and Elvin Jones is why I wanted to go to New York, and he was the number one person I wanted to play with. And all of a sudden, there I am, I'm playing with him. And so I said yes. And the reason that I said yes was that it was a much smaller scene back then. I had heard that John was, this is after the stuff he did with Tony Williams and all this. He's putting Mahavishnu Orchestra together.
Yeah, Mahavishnu.
So I heard that he was putting this band together, and he was looking for a piano player. And my roommate was Jan Hammer. He moved to New York, and he was staying with me. So I go and do the rehearsal. The first rehearsal was just John, Billy, and Billy Cobham on drums and myself. We finished the rehearsal, and John he said, "Okay, it's your gig." And I say to him, "I'd like to do one more rehearsal." I'm jiving, right? Because I'm trying to get Hammer in there because I know it's going to work musically.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we do one more rehearsal. We do it in my place, my loft. And so, boom, That's what happens. So I'd love to say that who was the first bass player in Mahavishnu? And to make it really crystal clear, who was the first hired bass player? And I turned it down.
You're an amazing man, Mr. Perla. You are an amazing man.
I'm still having fun.
There you go. One of the things that I always have in my closing credits of my shows and on the show notes is, and you know, it's debatable whether Confucius actually said this or not, but I believe he did. And I put the quote up: if you do a job you love, you never work a day in your life.
Nah.
I thoroughly believe that. So for us working musicians and our gig economy, and with these digital platforms that are coming out, which, sad to say, do not pay us anything. I mean, anyway, that's just a whole nother kettle of fish, whole nother topic altogether. What challenges and opportunities do you see for the union to adapt these collective bargaining agreements for the next generation of musicians?
Well,
because I noticed you put down that guessing what the future would be.
I think that's probably an element in the thing that that's all we can do as humans. Yeah, we sit down and CBA, we collectively bargain to come to a conclusion for an agreement between us. That's all fine and good, but I mean, aren't we looking into the future? Aren't we trying to protect ourselves from what might happen in the future? So therefore, thinking about where's the technology going to go? I mean, especially today, with the uproar that AI has and continues to cause, you know, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not easy, especially now with this AI thing, figure out what's going. But at least that's what we should. Each side of any agreement should be looking at that, trying to figure out what's best for them. You know, and as far as musicians are concerned, the best thing that I believe comes out of it is that if you have a CBA, that is indicating that you have a group. In this case, the American Federation of Musicians. So there are, what are there, 80,000 of us in the United States? That has a little bit of a voice, you know. And the point about it is we could withhold our services as we've done in the past.
Right.
Now, does that have any effect on us freelancers? No way. Hardly at all. But if you decide that Broadway orchestra musicians are going to go on strike, whoa.
That gets everybody's attention.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of power there, you know. So those are I believe, positive things about it.
Because when the biggest strike, I remember two large strikes that occurred here in LA for those of us in the business, and the last one was just about a year ago for the writers. And they did it one other time previously in, around 2020. And I was doing some extra work at the time. And when they went on strike then, I couldn't get any further work. And I was doing, pretty decently as an extra. I got work easily 3 to 4 days a week on set, for hours on end, and I didn't get any speaking roles. Otherwise, I would have got my SAG card or anything, and I just came just short of being able to do it based on the number of hours that I put in as an extra. But I also realized, you know what? SAG rates. Love the work they're doing, but like you said at the very beginning, the difference between the white local and the black local. Cost. SAG is expensive. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And
no, I understand totally.
And I'm a coupon clipper. I thoroughly believe in deals wherever I can get them. I saw that you got a couple of Sweetwater stickers on your file cabinets there. I've got one on the back of my computer. I bought some gear from Sweetwater when they have sales, you know. But the thing is, they had the strike, and because they are a large organization, everybody took notice, and then they went on strike again recently, and AI was one of the issues in the strike, you know. And I'm just like, okay, AI is here to stay. If we don't want to see a Skynet Matrix scenario go on, got to learn it and, you know, regulate it, govern it, whatever it is we have to do to make sure that it's not being misused. Because, like everybody knows, we musicians, unless we're paid and get the big contract or paid the big bucks, most of us do it for love, and we have to have our hands in a lot of different pots because a lot of places, venues, and it's sad to say churches, underpay us, you know. And that's the sad thing. And that was another reason, I guess, I joined the union, so that when I do go to these venues, I have a list of union approved venues that will pay wage. And, you know, that's all I can say on that, you know.
Yep, I get it.
It just, it's just something we've got to look into the future. There was a act back in 2017, 2018. It got signed into law in 2018. Speaking of technology and streaming platforms like Spotify, and I'm on one called Reverb Nation. And the streams, you only get a fraction of a penny. Pharrell Williams, there was an article about him a couple of years ago. One of his, I think it was for Happy, how he was streamed millions of times, but he only got $2,500 for it, or some ridiculously low thing. But the act that came out of all of this was called the Music Modernization Act, and it took it supposedly up to 9 cents a stream. I'm doing further research on it. I started it and then I put it down, and one of these days I will get back into it to find out what's up. But I mean, it didn't do much, but I guess, as a friend of mine said, it's a start, and we've got to start somewhere to get, you know, just to get things going. You know, you got to do something.
I'm not sure about this, because my understanding is that low 0.006 or whatever the number is, 0006. I forget the number. It's so small, it doesn't matter. But the 9.1 cents is actually for the sale of a song, meaning that if a record company sells a record and there's a song on there that's 5 minutes or less in length, they have to pay the copyright owner, normally a music publisher, 9.1 cents. That can't be a streaming amount, because if that was a streaming amount, that would be some serious money. Yeah.
But nonetheless, it raised the thing. So if you're somebody like maybe, say, me, who is not only the copyright owner, but the publisher and the producer of it and everything, that's great.
And the artist.
And the artist. You know, because I'm also in ASCAP. So I get it on both sides, the publishing side and the performer side. But, you know, that's something I'm definitely going to research, look into, brother, and thank you for helping me to clarify that.
Well, I think
the streaming
rate
was supposed to go up too. Right. The streaming rate was supposed to go up too.
No, they're getting ready right now. The Copyright Royalty Board is just getting ready. I'm not sure, but it's just coming up that they're in fact, they asked for input. They're going to revise the rates, but I'm not holding my breath on that.
Yeah. Well, at least somebody's talking, and it's a start somewhere. Maybe not in my lifetime or our lifetime, but hopefully it'll, as you said, prepare, get ready for the future.
Well, I'm going to repeat myself, but I just can't help it.
Go ahead.
I used to think years ago, if I could only last long enough, that I could smoke a joint on the street in New York and not be busted.
There you go. Because, I mean, okay, Berkeley story. I'm assuming that you were there in the mid-'60s, right?
Yes, early 60s.
Early 60s,
to
okay.
the mid, to the 62 to 66.
All right. And if I remember my history of our school at the time, the only building, I guess, was 1140 Boylston.
No?
No?
No, it was Newberry Street.
Newberry. Okay.
We had residential building. Yeah.
All right. But I mentioned that to say that, this was early. So when I got there, they had 1140 Boylston. They still had Newberry. And they had 150 Massachusetts Avenue, which was an old hotel that they converted for dorms and classrooms and stuff. And there was another dorm that was, you go down Boylston, and I forget, maybe it was Newberry, but you made a left and you went, it was off near the museum or something, but it was one of the guys' dorms down there at the time. But by the time they got the 150, my point is, they got the 150 building, we had what was called the Berkeley Beach. And that's where we would sit out in front of 150 on Mass Ave, and Symphony Hall was right down the way. Prudential was, Auditorium Station, Green Line, was in one direction, half a block away, cross over the freeway. The Prudential was behind us, if you will. So we would sit on Mass Ave, and that's where we would smoke, right there in front of the school. And we had all manner of people out there. You either did or you didn't smoke. It didn't matter. Everybody met out at the beach. The acoustic guitar players always had their guitars. They were sitting in the window because they were deep set windows, enough for you to comfortably sit down in and still be on the sidewalk. They would play. People would come and go. Some would stop. A couple of people even had their cases open and getting money. I mean, everything. It was magical to me.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So
we had that. I did partake. And it was just a great experience overall. And we had the real book salesman who would, and his dog, Tino, he would sell the real books. I think his name was Joe. I forget his name. It been over 40 years because I came out in 87 for whatever the math is. You guys do it for me. And I still have that real book. And we, Berkeley has grown so much.
No, boy.
I saw recent internet photos and I'm like, geez, that looks a lot different because at the time, at the corner of Mass Ave and Boylston, there was a bank. And that, if we did work, I worked work study, so they had an account with the bank next door, so I didn't have to wait for the check to clear. I could just go into that bank and they would cash it for me. Then I'd walk right across the street to my bank and make the deposit. Well, they bought the bank, so they owned the whole block at that point. And behind 150, they had the Berkeley Pavilion Outdoor Performance Center, I think, and benches that went up for you to sit in. And it was a pit-like scenario for the performers. So they had that, and then they just bought the whole block, the rest of the buildings, I guess, is the way the picture described it. And I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. This is just nuts. And I'm just like, one of these days I'm going to get back to Beantown and just see what's really going on, get my wife out there and everything. And it's just, it was just a magical time.
Yeah, it was for me too.
Yeah. Gene, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to somebody of your caliber as a musician and everything. And I'm just going to close this out with the one final question that I ask all my guests, and I phrase it this way so that, I try to be funny, and it's, what's in your car? In other words, what do you listen to musically? Not necessarily the style of headphones or equipment. If you want to say that, fine. But, who do you listen to when you're out and about? I had a guy who listened to nothing but news before he would get on a gig. He couldn't listen to music. He had to listen to something totally different before he went on a gig. Other people I know listen to their playlist of what songs they're going to do. I'm one of those people. And, what's your thing?
Well, I believe that human beings were not meant to be subjected to a sound that is constant. It varies in pitch, and there are artifacts or effects that pop in and pop out. And so driving a car, especially on the highway, I don't think it's healthy. So I don't listen to radio at all. I have a set of headphones.
Right.
They are noise-canceling headphones. And that's it, baby. It's nice and quiet when I drive into New York.
I heard that. Share a funny story real quick, and then we're going to call it.
A book.
Yeah, there you go. One of my buddies from Berkeley, name was Keith Jacks. He was actually my first guest that I had when I first started the podcast a few years ago. Wow. He has a company in Jersey called Third Rail. And I went to visit with him and his family at the time when I was at Berkeley, my first year. And he lived in Teaneck. And he had 2-story house with an attic, so I guess you could say 3 stories. But if you got up in the attic, there was a very small bay window, if you will, and the windows opened out. And you could see the George Washington Bridge from his house. And I think at the time, they didn't have their driver's licenses, and I did. And I'm like, I don't drive. I've never driven on the East Coast before. I'm a West Coast driver, but I can tell you LA traffic is a nightmare and a half.
You're kidding.
Yep. So anyway, we've got this bridge. They want to go into the city. I'm like, I don't know my way around. They said, we'll tell you. You just drive the car. Okay, fine. So I would go up into the attic because I was there for about a whole week staying with him in one of I think it was spring break or something. And we wanted to go into the city all the time. Because he said there's really nothing to do in Teaneck. And so I had the car. I drove. And I would go up into that attic first thing in the morning after here I am 19 drinking coffee, but after I had my coffee, and I'd open those windows and look out and squint to see the traffic conditions on the George Washington. So that I could try and tell them, okay, if we're going to get to Manhattan at this particular time, we need to go in 30 minutes or whatever. And, that's my little story of being there. And like I said, I would just look from Teaneck at the GW and decide, okay, are we going to take the bridge? Or do you guys know another way in? Because I don't know your city. I'm just driving. You tell me where, I'll turn the car. And we get into the city my first time, and I'm seeing all these people cut me off and everything. And I'm like, oh, you want to do that? So I pull out my LA driving.
Uh-oh.
Okay, it's on. And it was how I kept up with them. And I've got cabbies looking at me like, dude, what are you? I was like, hey, if you want to, hey, you zoom to get to yours. I'm trying to get to mine. All right. And I learned how to drive New York streets. And it actually isn't that much different from driving LA streets, because the people in LA drive just as nutty, in my opinion, as they do in NY.
They drive nutty all over.
All over. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that is phenomenal. And even though you don't like using the legend word, I'm going to say phenomenal, having this discussion with bassist, entrepreneur, educator, Gene Perla. And that's going to do it for this episode of Music Outlook LA, Gigs, Gear, and Info. And again, Mr. Perla, Gene, thank you so much for being a guest. And I'm going to put his website information in the show notes, folks. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show at both Spreaker.com, Spreaker, and on YouTube. And again, those links will also be there for everybody to check this out. And you can also, if you don't want to see it there or listen to the show at those two spots, go to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, Spotify, which is another thing in and of itself, Castbox, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and Listen Notes, which is the podcast search engine, just about anywhere you get your podcasts. And give the show a listen and rate us on Podchaser. I almost had a brain fart there. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm Will Kimsey, a.k.a. WK Music. That's Gene Perla. Peace.
This podcast is both brought to you and produced by Kimsey Entertainment, LLC. Music Outlook LA is a copyrighted broadcast of Kimsey Entertainment, LLC. The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of Will Kimsey or Kimsey Entertainment, LLC. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or any other use of this product without the express written consent of Kimsey Entertainment, LLC is strictly prohibited.